Silvana Gomez Juarez versus Vanessa Demopoulos. And
All
Silvana's
these
coming
fancy
in.
names today.
I know, they're hard to pronounce. Silvana's coming in at a plus 120. Vanessa coming in at a negative 140. So pretty close in terms of the odds. How'd you break down this fight, Fern?
Watching a couple of her last fights, watch Gomez Juarez. She has a good record, 10-3, 6 KOs, TKOs. So you see her style. Her last fight, she lost by submission by an armbar. Her style, she's super aggressive. I went back and saw one of her fights where she beat an unbeaten opponent in Brazil, and it was crazy because her face was swollen, like kind of Giga in this last fight, and just her being aggressive, she has a great overhand right, like super relies on it consistently. That one fight I was watching in Brazil, she beat some fighter like by the name of like Daimano or something like that. She got beat up the whole fight and was able to end up beating her by submission because just her overhand right kept her in the fight. Like it's crazy. You know, she's going to be, to me, one of those fighters that they say like all they need is one shot because that's all she needed to drop this other fighter and gets the submission win. The aggressive attack though, like, you know, against somebody like Demopoulos, has fought in other organizations, Dana White Contender Series, LFA, I believe it's Legacy Fighting Association. She's a champion, fought there as recently as a year ago. Her last fight in the UFC, she stepped in on short notice for her teammate. So you would think like they have similar fighting styles, similar training styles. She showed great takedowns. It seems like she was very aggressive on that, very set on getting the takedown. What had helped her set up, though, was great knees to the body. As soon as she got shot in for a takedown, it got, her opponent got the underhooks, pulled her up. She went right away to the knees to the body. One thing about Demopoulos, she's a champion, but for being a champion, she has no head movement, like minimal head movement. So that combined with her forward pressure is going to be interesting with somebody who just looks for an overhand right. Again, she is kind of very, I would say, like one-dimensional in her striking and her ground. On the ground, her last fight, she had great top control, like, was able to hold, sustain, get her breath, keep minimal movement. But when she was on the bottom, her guard was terrible. So it might just be a case of, somebody who trains to be the winner, be the better person in their training scenarios, because on offense she's great, but when she's fighting defensively, it was interesting for sure. On this one, I would say I'm going to go with the one-hitter quitter power of Gomez Juarez, my last name as well. It's great seeing a lot of these Mexican fighters who, was for a while you saw all these Brazilian fighters. The fight before this is another Mexican fighter, Moreno, another Mexican fighter, which, was kind of a resurgence of when you saw like Cain Velasquez, Roger Huerta, and then it kind of died down. And so it's nice to see all these other fighters who are getting this opportunity. Gomez Juarez, I think her aggressive attack is going to help her keep pressure up and, blow through, hopefully, Demopoulos. What are you thinking, Colby?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing is kind of interesting when you think about it. There seems to be like these surges of good people that come out of these different parts of the world. So like you're talking about in Mexico, we've seen, a few years ago when Adesanya was on the rise, these fighters out of like New Zealand.
Yeah, Hooker.
Yeah, and now on the main card, we got two fighters coming out of France, Gon and Nagano. So it's kind of interesting that the ebb and flows of, I think you get a really good fighter in a particular gym. It probably attracts other good fighters, and they probably build on each other. So that's an interesting dynamic that you pointed out there. As far as who it leans towards, I feel like it's probably a coin flip for me. Just looking at the stats, it's hard to rely on these stats when they aren't in the UFC because I question how these stats are compiled. But Vanessa has significant strikes landed per minute of 3.13 and Silvana at 0.71. So I think it kind of goes to what you're talking about. Silvana's, seek and destroy, looking for that nuclear option of, that one punch that'll put him away. So I think it should be a good matchup.